Gosh, it's nice to be back with you this morning. I missed you. Did you miss me? Say yes. Yes. We come together as pastor and people, but more importantly as brothers and sisters in Christ. We come together this morning with God in our presence and we in His. We come to receive gifts and blessings only He can give. It gives such joy to our hearts, such assurance to our living to know that we are known by the God of all creation. He knows each one of us intricately and intimately. We matter to Him. He has chosen us to be His own. And so this morning, as His children, in His presence, we eagerly anticipate and look forward to the gifts He will give, the teaching that He has to share with us, where He would take us as His children. So here's the question: How do we tell who a Christian is? How do we tell who's a Christian? I'm not talking about the person who looks back at you from the mirror. I'm talking about the people around us. How do we tell who is a Christian? Well, all of us have, I bet, though we probably haven't spoken out loud, we have kind of a criteria in our head of when we watch the people around us who is a Christian and who isn't. How do we tell who a Christian is and who isn't a Christian? Much more importantly, how do the people out there in the world tell? How do they know who a Christian is and who isn't? You know, when we talk about the signs of what should indicate, what should identify us as Christians, there's at least a couple that come immediately to mind. For example, going to church. That would seem to me to be an obvious sign, an obvious tell of who is a Christian. All of us here this morning gathered. We got up this morning, got dressed up, right? Brushed our teeth, combed our hair, fixed ourselves up. We came to church. You look around this morning. Don't look around. You don't want to embarrass your neighbors. But you look around this morning and, well, shouldn't this be a sign that these people are all Christians? Say yes. Yes. Seems to be, from our perspective, if we're looking for signs to identify who's a Christian, this should be an obvious one. Or how about if we just call ourselves Christians, if we say that we are? Shouldn't that be a sign? After all, who in the world would call themselves a Christian if they weren't? So, if the people out there want to know who the Christians are, well, let's give them testimony here. I'm a Christian. Shouldn't just saying that we are be enough? And yet it is so interesting, loved ones, it is so interesting and so powerful for us that neither of those, you hear me this morning, neither of those are the signs. They may be things that you and I do in our lives as Christians. They may be things that we say, that we speak, that we live out, but they do not, you hear me this morning, they do not identify us as Christians to the people of the world. They do not. In fact, Jesus tells us this morning, He gives us this precious gift. He tells you and I as His children that our identity, not just before Him and before one another, but especially before the world, listen, that our identity grows out of His love for us. You know, we are just people, aren't we? All of us who came here this morning from all the very places of our lives, all the contexts and circumstances, whatever we happen to do for a living, wherever we happen to be living, whatever we happen to have, we are really this gathering of people this morning. We're just people, just like the people out there. We have our strengths and our weaknesses and our failings and our fears and our strong places and our weak places. We are just like the people out there. If you haven't noticed, I'll point this out to you. We put our pants on one leg at a time, just like the people of the world do. We are in so many ways, loved ones, listen to me this morning, we are just people. But the Lord has done something so remarkable. He has brought His love home to us. He has made it real for you and for me. If there is a flow out of our lives that is so remarkably different than the world, it is this flow that inside of us, as people of the kingdom, as His children, we've come to know this to be true, that the cross of Jesus has our name on it. Yours, mine. And we see that cross with our name on it, and we know it to be this deep and abiding and wondrous and profound and love for us in spite of and in light of who we are. We listen to the echo of the empty tomb, and we know, we have come to know inside of us that this Jesus who rose from the dead, this tomb that is empty, represents for us a love that is powerful and lasting and really gives us something. We have come to know by the hand of the Lord that His love for us is real. And here's the difference, loved ones. His love in your life and mine has been and continues to be absolutely life-changing. Today we stepped into this place, you and I did. Oh, we came as human beings. We came with our sin, whatever it happens to be, all of it, every bit of it. We came, you and I did, to this place. And yet we know that because His love for us is real and strong, that love flows from His cross. And we have inside of us hearts that are made whole. Souls that have been restored. Every single day in your life and mine, we step out into the moments of our lives, and we know that we have a God who is going to watch over us and protect us and care for us because He does love us. That changes our lives. We may look like, we may appear to be like, in so many ways, like the people of the world. But you listen to this. Our identity as the people of God comes from the fact that He loves us deeply and passionately. So listen. It is His love, this love that I've just described to you. It is His love flowing through you and me to one another that is the real sign. Now listen, the real sign of our identity. In fact, Jesus tells us exactly that. Listen to the Word. He says, "By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." It is from you and from me by His power. It is the clearest sign. It is the loudest voice to the world around us of who we really are. You know, it's so much clearer, loved ones, than just the fact that we come and sit in a church. Oh, don't stop coming and sitting in a church, but hear me. For the people of the world, us sitting in a church means nothing. That doesn't tell them anything. And it is so much clearer, so much more powerful than just us saying that we're Christians. It shows them. As we are kind and compassionate and caring and gentle and tender with one another as brothers and sisters in Christ, as this great and glorious and wondrous love that Jesus showed to you and to me on His cross and from His tomb flows not only into our lives, but through our lives to one another. The people of the world see that, and they come to know not just that we are Christians, but that we belong to a God who is kind and loving and compassionate and giving. Listen, this is how they'll know. And I'll tell you something, it starts right here, and then it spreads. We begin here in the household of faith. You and I do. We are ordinary, regular people who the Lord has reached out and loved with His life. Ones He continues to love in miraculous and wondrous and divine ways. Changing us inside, giving us hope and assurance and peace and something to really look forward to and to hang on to, this love that just absolutely infiltrates our living. And then by His grace, watch this, and then by His grace He calls us as His people to let that love flow not only into us but through us as His children to one another. By being kind and compassionate and patient and understanding and long-suffering and caring as we live out among ourselves the very life of Christ that flows not only in us but through us. The people of the world see that in us and through us, and they come to know, listen, and they come to know that we belong to a God who must be loving, must be compassionate, must be forgiving, because that's what they see in us with one another. It is the sign of our identity. Wouldn't it be helpful? Wouldn't it be helpful if we all wore a sign? Maybe if we had a big C tattooed on our foreheads, okay, better yet on our hands, or sewed into the cuffs of our clothes. Well, Christians, I want you to hear this morning, we do wear a sign. We're just regular people, but we are ones that God has loved so very much. It is His love flowing not only to us, but through us to one another, that is the sign of our identity. By this, Jesus said, by this all people will know you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. That's the sign. And this morning in His house, this is a teaching of the Lord.